Hey, crypto heads, it's the Goose with the Cryptic Paranormal Show back here on a pandemic Thursday night, ready to rock and roll on RU Media Network. As usual, my illustrious co-host, this guy over here, Mr. Michael Bradley. How you doing tonight, sir?
Good, are you?
Doing good. You surviving?
Yep. To me,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like anything's changed. I don't like to go outside anyways.
So your hermit recluse abilities have not been challenged.
Nope, it's been
I gotcha. How's your
nothing's
wife
changed for
doing?
me.
Boss lady Kate. How's she doing so far? She's on the front lines. She's hanging in there okay?
Yep, she's an RN, so yep, she's hanging in there.
All right, well, God bless her. She knows that we all love her and support her and thank her for everything she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kate, if you're back behind there, thank you. If you're not,
No, she left.
she'll be on later.
Yep.
And tonight, our special guest, super psyched about this, down there, Mr. Justin Brown. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well considering.
Considering the chaos of what's going on outside our doors.
Right. My daughter, she's a softball player from beginning of March all the way to the end of October usually.
Yeah.
So no softball has been played. She was doing the open tees during March, and when they started canceling the school because of the outbreak, she's been just practicing at home. We're hoping that her softball season, her summer travel ball happens. Her school ball has been wiped off the schedule.
Gotcha. Yeah, my daughter is actually supposed to be starting their spring league, and that's been pretty much put on the sideline for now. She just started last year. She's only 9, so she's like super excited to be a part of it, and not happening. So it's putting the kibosh on a lot of activities this spring. It's kind of a bummer, but you got to be feeling the paranormal withdrawal right now,
huh? Not as much as usual. I edit and produce a lot of video content, so having time off from doing that is actually kind of nice.
Yeah.
I've been at it hardcore for 70 years straight, man. I'm not out. I'm not like shake. I don't have the shakes or anything.
I gotcha.
I got the shake.
Yeah. You got the shakes?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we don't do enough then. I mean, it's been rough. We've already had to cancel one investigation we were really looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just better to be safe and try to move on. There's plenty of things I know we could do it from our own home. Researching, you're producing like crazy.
The live shows keep me busy.
How many live shows do you have right now, and where can we find them?
Every Tuesday at 8 Eastern, I do a show for my blog page called Justin Brown Paranormal Research at 8 p.m. You can 2 times a month. It used to be every Tuesday on RU Media. Now I'm doing Paranormal Warehouse and RU Media. I'm like swapping back and forth.
Gotcha.
And you can watch that from Justin Brown, RU Media, or Paranormal Warehouse, depending on what week it falls on. Every other Wednesday, twice a month, I do a show called Necromancer Live, where I interview folks in the paranormal. That's 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. And probably 2 months ago, I started a show on every Friday, from the Interface Death Facebook page and Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch.
Oh, wow.
All my live shows go on 4 different platforms.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to branch out there. So that's a 2-hour show. We look up the latest trending paranormal news. And that's about 45 minutes of the show. Then we've been reviewing the new season of Ghost Hunters, season 2. We review, people submit like the stuff they caught or stuff that they ran across the internet. So they'll submit things. And then we usually spend at least 30 or 40 minutes just entertaining ourselves. And you know how it gets. You just start cracking jokes and having fun with the chat.
Oh yeah. And that's kind of like basically the whole format of our show. It's just being chilled, laid back, and just having fun. I mean, Mike and I are both pretty pretty open about that. We really don't know. We're not like Mr. Justin Brown down here, Mr. Fountain of Knowledge. But I watch your show, man. I'm mind blown by some of the theories and a lot of the research that you've done. Where does that all start for you? Where did this like chaos begin? What's your origin story?
It's never easy to do it justice because it's pretty. I'm a anal complex individual. Okay, so when I explain things, you know how it can go. So I'm going to do this as consolidated as possible.
We got 2 hours, man. Go ahead. Go.
Okay, all right. Well, I can fill that 2 hours easily. So
Good.
my mom, a lot of people watching from my stuff that I've, we're all a big family, so there's a lot of people in the chat probably knows about my mom, and if they've watched some of my videos and the documentary we just released in March, my mom's unique. She's special. Even amongst the metaphysical psychic medium community, she's like top tier. Mm-hmm. Like government's trying to track her down. Fucking talented.
Wow.
Okay, so she can go into a location and just tell you exactly what's going on. She can snap her fingers and eliminate all the activity if she wants, or she can amplify it. She's that crazy. So growing up, I hear stories all across the spectrum of the Fortean slip, UFO abductions, ghost sightings, time slips, you name it, man.
Yeah.
She's just bringing me up with this stuff. And I'm like, Mom's pretty weird. I'm not going to tell any of my friends about this stuff, obviously, because they're going to think I'm crazy too, because I'm thinking she's just Looney Tunes. So, yeah, it would freak me out because some of the stories she'd tell me, balls of light coming down out of the sky, landing in their apple orchard, and little alien childlike beings coming out and playing with. I just that over and over and over. Okay. And she would tell me there was this entity that would manifest as a blue glowing lady in this room where she grew up. She grew up in a house that was 300 years old. That was in the 80s. So like Christmas time, we would sleep up in this room, the guest room, where she had this encounter with this ghost she told me about. And it scared her because she was young. And I'd never told my mom, but every time I would either sleep up there by myself or even with my brother and my mom, I wouldn't sleep a wink. I was terrified that I was going to see this ghost. So, that's how I got brought up. And probably 1990-ish, we moved into a house in Hillsboro, Ohio. We bought it. They bought it from a firefighter. And we moved in, nice house. We fixed it all up. Yeah. A year goes by, completely normal. So after a year, the firefighter committed suicide. I think it was because he had marital problems. I don't know for sure about that. Mm-hmm. I always say that because it's not like I have all the info. But after that, we started experiencing some strange things, kind of like the onset of your usual haunting. Footsteps, weird noises, feeling something staring at you, or a presence in the room that you cannot locate. And my dad hears the steps going up and down the stairs while me and my brother are sleeping, and he's thinking that me and my brother are doing it. So he's yelling at us to go to bed, but we're not answering. And my mom's telling him it's not them. It's the man who sold us the house who killed himself. And he's like, that's BS. So one night he goes up there to try to catch us, and we're sound asleep in our bed. So he was scratching his head, thinking that was pretty weird, obviously. So it was that kind of stuff. Fast forward about another 10 years, 12 years. At that point, I had a 2-year-old, and it was just me and him in the house. And this is the point where I could not look back anymore. This is where I knew that the paranormal is real. The crap that my mom's telling me is all real. And it's just like, this is it. So I'm up there talking to my boy, and he's just now starting to talk in complete maybe almost complete sentences, almost
Yeah.
during a conversation. So he's telling about this man named John. And I ask him, who's this guy named John? Are you talking about my dad? Because his name is John. And he looks at me right in my eyes, just like it's a normal thing. He's like, no, John R., he's dead.
Wow.
And that just so happened that the firefighter's name is John R.
Wow.
And there's no way I can tell you how I felt. It freaked me the F out hardcore.
Yeah, I would bet.
And I just, I walked outside and chain smoked for, a good 15, 20 minutes and sit there and just digested that. It hasn't fully digested. I don't know if you can digest that. There's dead people talking to you. You talk to your son, and his name's was not spoken, let alone while he was alive, but 8 years or 5 years before he was even born. So there's no way that it wasn't what it was. So that is at the point where my mom's right. Later on, before I moved out of the house, I was experiencing poltergeist-like activity. Like the pennies would fly across the room, radios would turn on. It got worse.
Yeah.
So the house ended up getting tore down. It got dilapidated. My dad stopped fixing it, and he eventually died in 2011 at the age of 54 from a massive heart attack at work.
Oh, wow, man.
So I did experience hauntings at other locations that were pretty profound. But we won't get into that. We'll save some time for that. But the death of my father and the death of his mother and father right 3 months before him was like a huge slap in the face. Oh, there's my phone. Jessica's going to give me hell for that. I thought I was going to die next, right? Because my dad dies, his mom and dad dies, all in a 6-month period.
Oh, shit.
So I'm like, shit, I need to get my crap together. I need to start being healthy. I need to get spirituality in check. I need to start, focusing. So it refocused my life, made me think about mortality more.
Yeah.
So I'm watching ghost shows. My dad, the image of my dad just bloated and bloody from his heart exploding out of his mouth did not leave me very quickly.
Yeah.
So, it was like I'm constantly thinking about death, about death. So I'm watching these ghost shows, checking them out, and I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Does it look like rocket science to me? So I looked up a local paranormal group and hung out with them for 6 months. And I decided I wanted to do it a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So I started my own group in March of 2013. And the rest is history.
And the name of that group is Interface Death, correct?
Correct.
So how did you find this team of yours? I mean, what was their criteria? What were you looking for in a team? I always find that interesting because everybody's got their own ideas. So I was just curious what yours is.
Well, at first, I would ask my friends who were interested in the subject matter, who wasn't afraid to go to certain locations, weren't cracked out, someone you can trust to a point. So it wasn't like you would go to the Craigslist or go to the Yellow Book and look up just anybody. You kind of start off with friends.
Yeah, right.
So that's what I did. And I would meet some people from other groups. I actually adopted 2 members from the group I was in. And they came over to my group. And that's how it lasted for a couple years. And then in 2016, I was doing public ghost tours for Cincinnati Ghost Seekers at the time. And I met Derek and Missy and their group there. And they, after I did my lecture and everything, they would ask me questions. And that's when we first met. And then at the beginning of 2017, I'm pretty sure, is when we did our first investigation with Derek and Missy.
Gotcha.
And at that point in time, I still had some of the former members. I brought on a cop and his wife, which is a dispatcher, but they ended up leaving the group. I didn't meet Josh Bender until summer of 2017 when I was doing the Higginsport School documentary. And he had got a hold of me, got me on his podcast, and decided, hey, I like this guy. I want to throw ideas at him. I want to talk to him. So we talked a lot on the phone. We talked a lot on Messenger. So he's like, hey, man, I got these lights that I'm working on. I'm going to show them to you, and you tell me what you think of them. So when I got him, I was like, yeah, you definitely got something cool here. Let me give you some ideas. And that's how Deadlight was born.
Oh, okay.
So Josh Bender came on in 2017, had Derek Schreiner and his girlfriend or fiance, Missy Vastine. And I had a group going. And then I would lose two of the older members and would gain Jessica Bias in late 2018 or early 2019. She decided that she had these budding psychic abilities that I was going to help her figure out and use it during the investigations to see, what she could do. So the metaphysicists in the group, we kind of do it different than most groups. Well, no, it's almost like a Dead Files format. Yeah. So we have them walk through. We don't allow them to have any prior knowledge. Totally blind. So we investigate their abilities and do double blind tests to see what they hit on, what's different, what's inaccurate, what's accurate, and see if we can make it better or try to at least figure out how it works with them. So that's, man, we got 5 members and we haven't looked back. We haven't, we did have Joe Vitale come and film the last half of season 6.
Okay.
Because Derek hurt his arm at work and he had one working arm.
Gotcha.
And we he helped us out with the Hartford City documentary because that was a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
For the last filming of that. That film took 2 years to put together.
Oh, wow. Okay. Damn. So
I think having a good team is like the key to everything.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you what, I would like to see who has better team than I do. As far as willingness to pump thousands of dollars into filming and research projects.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah.
not asking anything in return.
Yeah.
They never complain. They never ask for anything in return. They're very, very skilled, very, very hardworking, and very, very talented. So really cool. There's groups out there. I don't mean to say that, but I'm biased, so I have to say it.
Well, yeah, that took our group out. We're a bunch of dumbasses.
Well, I mean, it just depends. I mean, if you have a group of people that are like-minded, that are focused on the same goal, it doesn't matter what the goal is. It's just, like you guys are into filming and documenting and sharing that with all of us. We're just kind of into going into locations and like experiencing and documenting our experiences for our own stuff. We don't really share them out. It's just us. I mean, this is how we share things. This podcast and filming, but it's cool. It's nice. I know, like with me and Mike and our group, we're really lucky. It took us time to get there, just like it seemed like it took you, but it took us time to get there. We had a couple cancers here and there that we had to cut out, and we figured it out. But yeah, definitely, it's most important to have a good group. Especially, I couldn't imagine how much work goes into the filming process of a documentary. I mean, that's
well, it's what makes it insanely difficult is the time restraint you have at the locations. So people like Derek, Josh, Missy, and then Jess there towards the end for season 6. You literally have to work your ass off harder than you do at your day job to get it done. Like literally. Like I don't know how many times I've looked at Josh and Derek's faces and they look like they're just completely done, but they don't stop. And the rarity of that type of work ethic and that amount of loyalty is, very appreciative. And I don't want to tell you guys, I just feel spoiled because it's just like they're like 100% behind everything that you're doing. and it just doesn't stop. And if you feel, and sometimes if I feel like if I'm, not going full throttle ahead, they're pushing me to go full throttle.
Right.
That's good.
So it's legit, guys. What you're seeing is everything that we got, that we can afford and what we can pull off.
Right.
I mean, I could imagine like editing and all that. That's like hard. I mean, because you're watching, like, remember we did it. We had 4 cameras. And I'd be like watching that, like, I would be watching that like almost 24 hours sometimes just to get through one camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a workflow. You get the workflow down. I've edited over 500 videos, and once you do something 500 times, you're either going to be good at it or you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm just what kind of program do you use for your editing?
I just use Sony Vegas 14, or it's not Sony Vegas anymore. It's Vegas Pro 14. It's what it's called. It's like 3 years old.
Okay.
And I use Adobe Premiere for the text animations and the other animations that I do.
Gotcha.
And that's basically it. I use stuff like NCH, Mixpad, and Audacity for some audio, tricks. Like if I need to, do something with audio mixing or anything. Yeah. And that's it. I use cheap bare bones stuff. And what people need to understand, if they don't, is it doesn't matter what you're using to a certain extent.
Right.
We do as low budget as we can. We got some 4K cameras. We got the Mavic Pro 2 drone that Josh operates. We got some sliders. We got, camera rigs. We got really, really nice audio equipment. And then the equipment we use to actually, try to figure out the paranormal. So all that adds up, but you could probably spend millions of dollars on the same thing that we do and might come out with similar results. It's just how your knowledge and how to cut it together. It's like someone can make a really, really good cake out of a $1 bowl and a $200 oven, or a $100 bowl and $1,000 oven. It's going to look the same. It's going to taste the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a great analogy too. Cause it's something that I've been kind of frustrated with myself on. It's something that I've wanted to do. Like if I could just put one film out, one documentary, I'd be happy. But I know it's kind of like anything else. You do one, and then you're going to want to do another one,
right?
Because you see the final product, you put it out, then you're like, oh well, I should have done this, or next time I'm going to do this, and it's got to be the same way for you. I'm imagining just you keep coming up with ideas. But I did download a program just today. I'm going to start messing around with. I mean, even if it's just like 15, 20, like Mike and I were talking about, just doing like 15, 20-minute YouTube videos just to get started, to figure it out, like how to use the programming and stuff like that. But
the documentaries are tough, especially if it's like, say it's an hour long, to get people to watch something an hour long and not being bored. You got to have scenes that got to, you got to have a certain level of production value in it. So people don't get bored, or people don't get, the scenes don't get stale.
Sure.
So, when you watch something, if it's an hour long and it only feels like it was 20, maybe 30 minutes, then you did your job.
Yeah. Yeah. The Darren Smith said Hollywood style. Freaking Hollywood style.
Freaking Hollywood style.
Freaking Hollywood style.
I wish I had the crew and the money and the editors and the graphic designers that Hollywood had.
Right?
It'd be like Transformers.
Yeah. Transformer.
Transformers. You've seen that movie, right? The amount of CGI that went into that is insane.
Yeah, it's so much CGI, you can't even really tell what's going on most of the time. It's all just so fast moving. It's like I miss the cartoon where you can see the arm come out and the head pop up real slow. You know what I mean? It's just everything's there. You can't keep control of everything. Oh, just shout out to the chat room, guys. If you got any questions while we're talking to Justin, we'll definitely try to get them in. But I wanted to touch base. You're doing a lot of promotion for your latest documentary, Haunted Hartford City, a paranormal documentary. So kind of give us the background on that and how did that whole project start for you?
Sure. We were looking for locations in the Indiana area to investigate, and we ran across Blackford County Jail in Hartford City, Indiana. We had heard that they had several locations that were allowing teams to come in and do private investigations. So we're wanting to film some episodes, and what we do is try to do like 5, maybe 6 docu-series episodes for the YouTube channel a year. And that's the goal, and we mix in tutorials, live streams, and everything else. But we ran across the old Blackford County Jail. It was affordable. It wasn't a place that was done a whole lot. So we're like, we're going to go check this out. The city seems cool. The jail seems cool. So we go do that. And then afterward, we met Kelly Reeder, who was managing Dan Allen's. He was the owner of the jail, and he also owns a few other buildings. Mm-hmm. And she says, I really, really like your guys' work. I want you guys can come back anytime. And she wanted us to do the world's largest ghost hunt there.
Yeah.
A few times we've done that. Cool. And we got those locations, we can go do whatever we want at those locations, because she told us that we were delivering the historical content the right way, mm-hmm. and treating the locations the way she thought that Dan and the other locations that he owned should be portrayed and put out there. So they were giving us full access. So we got those two locations in Harvard City. The Irvin Campbell building has a speakeasy. There's a huge room where there's a speakeasy in it. And it's not the most active location, but it's part of the film. So then we got a hold of some people that help run the Monroe House. And we were running with other filmmakers and other people that were doing projects at the Monroe House.
Yeah.
So I got access to the Monroe House.
Nice.
And then I met Eddie, and he heard about what we were wanting to do. So he's like, you guys can come in and do it, if you want to. Super freaking cool guy.
Yeah.
Him, his wife, and everybody that's associated with it. So we got that location. We investigated. We released a video. And then when we came in, that's all started in 2018. Then we came in 2019 and did all the B-roll shots, all the drone shots, and reinvestigated and did all the pickups that we needed. And we got another location, which is the Griffin's Blind Tiger Bar. It's every location's a block away from each other.
Nice.
So we're just like walking to each location. And doing this, it's like we had keys to the most haunted city in Indiana.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, we literally had 4 keys. Well, the Monroe House has a key padlock, but we had keys in our pocket, and we just bounced around, and we finished it up, and we turned it into what you see in the film. It's 2 hours and 4 minutes of probably like 100 hours of footage.
How long did that project take you to like edit down to what it finally was? Just out of curiosity.
I want to say I can do an hour-long documentary probably in 40 hours, not counting the review. The review takes months to do.
Yeah.
But I can edit the film in about 40 hours, but I don't do all that at once. The longest I've ever edited at once was about 20 hours, I think.
Yeah.
But 40, 50 hours. So what I did was the first time we were going to do an episode of the jail, I took most of the highlights from the jail and added that as the first act. And then I added the bar and the Monroe House to it, all the new stuff in. Not much stuff came out of the speakeasy, so I kind of brushed over. I mean, a few things.
Yeah.
But you're trying to consolidate it down and tell a story that people are going to be interested in watching. So that's about how long it takes. Probably like for that film, I want to say it took 80 hours to edit.
Wow.
Just a rough estimate. I didn't time myself, but just going off of how I usually edit. Right. Maybe 80 hours, like 2 full working, full-time job weeks.
Yeah. So of all these locations, that's a lot, and quite a few different locations to focus on in one documentary.
Pretty cool though.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's the hardest thing I ever did, or we did.
I can imagine. Of those locations, what was the most active for you guys, and like what kind of things did you experience? Obviously without giving too much away of.
Well, the Monroe House is the most active out of all of them. Mm-hmm. We had released a short mini doc called "The Haunting on Monroe Street" from when my mom did her first walk through there, and a little bit of the investigation footage that we got from there during that night. I can definitely tell you everything that happened in during that night to give you an idea of what happens at the location.
Yeah.
So Monroe House is it's the third act of the documentary. It's the one that's the craziest, just the darkest haunting there is. They give you kind of a rundown of the history. It's just a whole like American Horror Story sandwich at one location.
Yeah.
Okay. You got the house the older structure burning down, killing a child. You got molestation, child abuse, serial killers, occult-like activities, Satan worshiping. I mean, it's just like, what the F?
Damn.
And they found human remains underneath their freaking house. I mean, it's been on, network cable TV, Nick Groff and they've been investigating the house since 2008 when Eddie got the place. And the owner's terrified of it. There's a lot of people that have really, really negative experiences there, which one that we interview for the film, Deb Schneider, she had hear in the trailer, her audio from the investigation where she gets jumped by something that it sounds like she's reliving the memory of a woman being attacked.
Oh, wow.
And it's terrifying to listen to. I mean, it gives me the willies, and I'm not easily startled or taken back by anything. But that place will do it to you. And I think the craziest thing that I have captured there, my mom is going through the house, naming off everything like she's reading it from a pamphlet, freaking out me and Michael Diddy. Yeah. And she goes to go upstairs, and she says she's being barred to go upstairs by this entity that she calls the trickster. So I'm like, push on. So she pushes on. She starts to go up the steps, and midway through the steps, she stops and she turns. She's like, oh my God, he's rolling severed heads down the stairs. Can you hear that? Yes. And I'm like, no, I don't hear that. I don't hear a damn thing. And she's like, well, maybe you'll hear it on the recording. So a week later, she comes in the house. She's like, pull up that part. And I swear to God, guys, it's on the video. Yeah. You hear, it sounds exactly like someone's, like tennis balls are bouncing down the steps as she's saying it. But you don't hear it while you're there. She heard it and the camera heard it, but I did not hear that. And this goes back to this crazy crap my mom tells me that I pray to Jesus that isn't true, but why else would there be that sound going down as she's saying, did you hear that? It's that kind of stuff that you just wish didn't happen.
Yeah, right.
Because, people want to sleep at night. People want to say ghosts aren't real, the boogeyman's fake, monsters aren't, in the closet, all that stuff. It keeps you sane. Well, it's real, unfortunately.
I still won't hang my hand over the bed and afraid of the monster will get me.
You never know, man. You never know.
So yeah, that's pretty crazy, man. The Monroe House is definitely a place I want us as a group to go experience. I've heard so many amazing things about it. John Ward is in the room. I know he's been there. He's worked there before. A couple of other people. I know Pam and or Eddie. Eddie is a great guy. It seems like.
Oh yeah, he's one of the coolest property owners I have had the privilege of meeting and working with.
Yeah. So when you guys investigate, I guess in general, what's your like go-to equipment? Like I know you like try to be as, I guess, you sway away from the pseudoscience and you try to stay away from certain things. But what kind of like technology do you employ? Do you have like a method that you use when you go into investigation?
Mm-hmm. Well, we try. Every investigation's flawed because nothing's perfect. Mm-hmm. So, it's a bunch of non-scientists try to do scientist things.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the way we feel too.
So, no matter how much research we do and how much learning we do, I mean, a lot of the guys, they're just knowing just enough to deal with my anal filming techniques.
Yeah.
They're doing everything they possibly can just to keep up with that. So everything else, they're running around with this gear to film their face at all times, microphones to record everything they're doing the whole time. Everything's like triple redundant as far as audio recordings go, multiple microphones to see if we can isolate voice phenomena on just one mic, and these EMF sensors to try to correlate electromagnetic frequencies and fields to EVP or to any phenomena that you experience. Data loggers that will measure anomalous environmental things. So one thing we try to do is we try to investigate the psychic phenomena within our group and the claims of other psychics by, doing that. That's a big part of what we do, because I personally believe that that's part of how things manifest in the first place.
Sure.
There's some things psychoactive in our minds and our perception that allows us to experience the paranormal.
Right.
I don't believe that you can take the most haunted location, set it there, and throw up cameras. I mean, you're just going to get residual stuff. Sure. You're not going to get any intelligent interaction. It's only when you introduce a consciousness like our own, even animals, it doesn't matter, anything consciousness to the location, that's when you start getting intelligent response. So we can understand that through psychic ability, because I think this all stems from psychic ability. It's all that sixth sense area. So we do tests like that. We stick people into locations in certain scenarios to see what they experience. Sometimes we'll put Derek in a situation where he has no gear and he's just going off how he's feeling, what he's thinking. But on the same side, we are trying to stay objective as possible. Are we getting physical evidence of what they are experiencing? So if he feels something, we want to see an environmental change that would correlate with that. If we hear something, we want to get an audio recording of that. So that's what we're doing, and we actually do get that. It's not as much as we would like, but we do see correlations between what you feel, what you hear, what you see. The visual things are the most rare, that you hardly ever get something that can be really, really legit visually. But the seeing and feeling part is easy to actually document if you push hard enough and if you do it right.
Yeah. Let's see. Question. We got a question. So what are some of what most people would believe to be the most outlandish theories? That's from Age Paratalk.
I got 5,000 of them.
Narrow it down to about 2,500.
Okay. One of the most outlandish things I've heard is EVP is the result of acoustic phenomena being above or below the range of human hearing. If it was, you would never hear it.
Yeah.
Whether it was in the environment with your ears or on a recorder, it's physically impossible. So that's outlandish to me. But people are still tossing it around and messing with inference and doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, stop it. Let's see. ITC is one of my big problems because
that's one rabbit hole I was going to go down with you.
I researched the crap out of the spirit box, just like everybody else like us, man. And can something be manipulated like a radio? Absolutely. But in order to prove that, or to get something that you can build a model of how the phenomena is supposed to work, you can't just grab a radio and sweep through it without any control of what comes through it. Pareidolia, is a big issue there, and the subjective nature of human perception is there. You can't go off of that if you want to understand things objectively. So I did introduce a method to where you use two spirit boxes, sync them up, and try to see if one of the spirit boxes blurts out something where the other one didn't, and record individual. That's where you could start to cross-check to see. That's when you can get the anomalies, because you can't get an anomaly on a radio. You can set a radio in your room right now, and it's going to blurt out crap all day long, every day.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem. The apps, I mean, that gets even worse.
Yeah.
So
we tested some of those out.
Right. Yeah. We tested them on the show, and they're all pretty much just word banks, random.
Well,
Random.
people need to understand pareidolia. They need to study that stuff, guys. People will tell me it's like, well, if you reverse something and you hear something come out of it, it's got to be legit. No, you reverse songs and hear stuff. I mean, it's part of how we perceive things, guys.
Sure.
And the stuff that mixes up the phonetics. What do you think words are made of? Phonetic sounds.
Right.
So
please.
Yeah, you hear your brain fills in that what it thinks it should hear there.
It's an expert. Your brain is an expert at identifying faces and identifying like something out of chaos, out of randomness.
Right. Agreed. Got Patrick. He wants to know if you think using too much gear hinders the investigation.
It can. And we constantly battle with that because what we try to do is if we do get a voice phenomena, if something comes across that we can't explain, we want to be able to see our face the whole time because not everybody's recording everybody's faces with handheld rigs. Right. So we just use face cams. They record the whole time and we mic everybody that records the whole time. So that can get very cumbersome. That can get very hard to set up and deal with during out the investigation. Sometimes you want, like I mentioned before, you want to put someone in a scenario where they're not really doing anything and someone else is documenting what they're saying, what's going on with them, and trying to pull back all that gear and all that stuff to see if they can have a experience that is reported from the location. Like if you go into Madison Seminary, you go up to the asylum area, if you walk down that creepy ass hallway and all of a sudden you start having the similar experiences, it could be hard to have that experience if you're locked into this LCD screen in the dark and you're reading this meter and you're listening to this audio, that all goes away. So it can absolutely interfere.
Gotcha. We had John Ward with a question. Do you notice more activity when you and Interface Death are grouped together or during solos?
Solos, no. There's only one time that I actually had activities by myself. That was at Waverly Hills. And that was the only time that I remember. We get the most activity when we do non-science stuff. So when, like, say you got Missy, me and Missy get together and we're going like that bit of audio that we recorded down in that room where the girl was believed to be murdered and buried there.
Yeah.
She's talking about what she's picking up on. She says, this woman says, my baby. My baby. Yeah. And there's been reports of like, I don't know, hundreds of probably abortions done there. And I was thinking, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe that woman got knocked up. She got pregnant. They aborted the baby. And maybe she got a little lippy and they did something with her too.
Yeah.
So we walked in there and I started feeling what I would call energy. We don't know what it is. We can't really detect it as magnetic or electrical or whatever accurately. So I'm just going to call this energy. And basically from what my mom has taught me and what I know intuitively, you start to stir the pot. So you see me doing this with my hand. I'm stirring the energy and then I feel it. And it directs me to that bricked in corner of that room that looks weird. Yeah. So I go over there and I start knocking on the wall. Can't hear a hollow through bricks. So I step back and I ask an entity that might be there. I was like, is there something behind that wall? And we get something that sounds like, on every piece of recording equipment we got. And when Missy heard it with her own ears, I heard it with my own ears. And it's that during that time that, the stuff with my mom, when she says heads are rolling down, when the psychics say stuff and you start doing psychic-like things, that's when we get more. Yeah. There's another instance with Jessica at the Anchorage where she's picking up on an old angry man. And when she goes up a few steps into this room, you hear a man say she's coming, clear as day, out of thin air.
Wow.
And I think that's why we experience things. We're connecting psychically to these things. What sometimes it happens without intent. Sometimes it subconsciously does it. Like, for example, you're sitting in your house, you're watching TV, and you out of the corner of your eye, you see a black shadow, and you look, and it goes bloom out of the way.
Yeah.
So what I think that is, after a while, you start to psychically resonate with the location. It starts to feel like home. You start to feel the location. You start to live in that location. I think the resonance becomes equal at times. It goes in and out, in and out. And at times, when it starts to vibe in the same way, the two realms can exist. And I think all that is to be understood through the psychic phenomena. There's some psychic component to it all.
Yeah.
Just don't know how we can replicate it and repeat it.
Right. And that's where the scientific method gets a little gray area.
Well, all you got to do is replicate and predict.
Right.
So, for example, you would be like, okay, we're going to go down to the laundry area, to the Madison Seminary, and you're going to predict that you're going to get a voice phenomena with the same spectral analysis the same time.
Yeah.
So we have to go back through there and repeat what we did before, which is the hard part because there's a psychic component to it. There's this intuitive, organic process to it. So if we learn how to repeat that in the same way it happened before, that's when it can be predicted and repeated.
Gotcha. I want to go back to a question Bill Davis brought up. I want to know if Interface Death uses clickless ISO lenses.
He's such a dumbass.
Okay, that was a technology term. It actually sounded like a good question to me.
Okay.
I guess explain what an ISO or clickless ISO lens is.
This is an inside joke, guys. I
got you.
I sent him.
Bill.
I shared a video, and it was some guy doing a tour at the Frankenstein's. No, it was Dracula's castle or something. I can't remember. And I guess some guy had made a statement where he was trying to drop the exposure, the brightness, by using that aperture ring on your lens. But in the video, I guess he calls it an ISO, and that's incorrect. And I told Bill that. So things like that amuse him.
I gotcha.
Hey, whatever works, man. Whatever works.
Mm-hmm.
Had me going. And somebody else said that's actually a great question. So
they set us up, Ray. They set us up.
So what he's talking about is when you do cinematography, you want a aperture manual adjustment on your lens to not click for every step. You want it to be smooth because you don't want to hear the click, and you don't want the increments of the exposure steps to look like they're just one to the other. You want it to be smooth transition. So
I gotcha. That makes sense now. I got it. Cool. We got Patrick. He's asking, have you tried using old school investigation tools?
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming he's meaning like pendulums, dowsing rods, that type of thing. Patrick, weigh in if that's what you mean.
Yeah. We've done things by walking into the plays, taking notes, just using recorders. I've tried that. We really don't do that with Interface Death a whole lot because we're filming and testing these crazy hypotheses. So we don't have a whole lot of time to choose a spectrum of different techniques. So there's probably something to the dowsing rods. I read an article of a scientific study done on dowsers, and they found supporting evidence that some people have a hypersensitivity to magnetic fields, and when or over a geomagnetic source with water in between them, they subconsciously feel the change in the field that allows the ideomotor effect to move the rods to cross. That sounds crazy and far-fetched, but they repeated that and found evidence that that's true. So people, when they're just holding it, right? But you ever seen the weird shit that people, like they'll point at people or they'll cross, or people will actually move them with their hands? I believe that all that's possible through a subconscious mechanism.
Okay.
But I mean, old school tape recorders have
Yeah.
problems. Like the old school magnetic tape recorders have internal noises. If you can get a quiet one, you should be able to get EVP on that because there's history of it happening.
Right. So yeah, that actually leads me to a question now. And I don't know whatever people think the Panasonic DDR60s or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So many people are spending so much money on these recorders. What is your opinion on that? Because I'm like, I think it just picks too much static. It's too sensitive. Again, going back, it's hard for you like the actual make. I think it's going back to the pareidolia.
Right. First, you want to use common sense. Well, the reason why it's so expensive is obvious. There's very few of them out there, and they're on TV, and people are saying they're the best recorder out there, and celebrities are saying this, and people who claim to be self-proclaimed paranormal experts are saying this.
Right.
So you mix that with the rarity of it will drive the price up. So that's why that's so expensive. But I understand recording devices, digital and analog recording devices, probably more than 90% of the population because I'm a freaking nerd. I was into that way before I was a paranormal investigator because I did sound. I ran sound for bands. I was in a band.
Oh, okay.
We recorded studio recordings.
Yeah.
So I know how microphones work, like every single little part and how rack gear works, everything. I just know how it works. So the DR60 is the first gen of digital recorders put out there. They have like a 5K sample rate, which is probably the detail of nothing. Like you can talk into it and you can barely understand it kind of quality.
Yeah.
So right out of the gate, that is very bad. Right. Another reason it's bad is that it has internal memory that's difficult to offload for spectral analysis. So you can do it, but it takes a lot more effort. It's not as easy. And another thing is I'd never suggest or advocate the use of Vox or voice activated style of EVP recording. For one, you need to cross check your other audio data with what you're getting. Right. So if there is condensed amount of time only when the noise gate opens when you talk or when it allegedly gets something, you can't cross check it and time code it with other data. And that is probably more important than the 5K sample rate.
Gotcha.
So like if you're there, can you say your name? And then between you get a response and between, you got to know when that happens. And the red light's supposed to stay solid when it's recording something and blink when it's not. So I never see people recording the light to correlate the EVP they got with the lights.
Gotcha.
And it's just, I don't understand. I understand why people use it because they're getting something out of it. And it got recalled because it was recording internal sounds because the microphone is there's usually the circuit board, the circuitry inside of it is shielded away because it all gives off interference. Temperature can affect the microphone, magnetic fields can affect the microphone, and the RF going through the air can also hit the circuit board and cause issues. And that can cause issues with the mic. So if it's not shielded properly, then you're going to get interference on your microphone. Because if you had your phone next to your speaker, you're going to get interference. So it's the same thing, but when you're hearing it through 5K sample rate, it's going to sound like Satan.
Well, that's cool. That's what we want, right? No, just kidding.
That's usually my stomach.
It's super good for TV. It's super good for TV.
Patrick had another question. I got to scroll back here real quick. Do you get more EVPs using a spirit box or without? I'm not really sure.
The only time I got an EVP with a spirit box is when I just use it for white noise, and I have a recorder sitting next to it, and you're recording it with video camera, and you have another recorder over here. The first validated EVP I got was actually from a ghost box, but what happened was I got a response on the recorder, but nothing on the camera recording the session. So it was on the recorder, but not on the camera. So my guess is that they modulated the noise in the air somehow, and before it got to the recorder,
Yeah.
or they did something else. But that's the only time. I think it's better just to use a recorder.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
what do you think about? Oh,
no, go ahead.
what do you think about like the FLIR and the cameras the thermal cameras?
Okay, a lot of people don't know how they work. Again, so they are designed to read surface temperature. So they're really good at pointing at your circuitry to see where there's hot spots, to see if there's something going wrong. Or firefighters use them to find the hot spots so they can not die from backdrafts and all kinds of stuff. And they read the temperature from the surfaces. It has to be something physical for the infrared light to hit it and reflect back data. So people are using them to find non-physical things. So the last episode of Ghost Hunters, I don't know if you watched it, Daryl Marston's pointing a FLIR down the hallway, and he sees the purple image in the middle of the hallway. So when you use those type of FLIRs and you're looking down a long hallway, you're always going to get a purple spot because you've reached the max distance it can reflect off things.
Yeah,
so
I get that.
when that happens, it's going to be a purple blob that looks like your dead grandpa.
Okay.
I got you.
Yeah, I got the what is it?
The Seek XR.
Yeah, Seek XR, and it does have a spot in there.
Yeah.
So they're good for trigger objects. Door opens on its own. I would be looking for a temperature variation on the door somewhere.
Yeah.
So if you use them correctly, yes, they can be used, and you got to watch out for reflective surfaces. Anything reflective is just like you're looking into a mirror in infrared. So windows, mirrors, anything shiny and reflective.
That makes sense. And then I got a couple people asking, what do you think about the SLS cams, Kinect cameras?
They were horrible for gaming and even more horrible for paranormal research. When they first came out, they had 2-player for the Xbox One, and Kenny Biddle did a really good research article on it, and I always refer people to Kenny Biddle's article because he does outstanding research on that tech. So what would happen is player one would be playing a game, and he'd be like, "Hey, bro, come over here and join me." They tried to get the player 2 to work, and it would already say player 2 is already playing. So that's when they thought, well, there's no other people here. It must be a ghost. Well, what happens is if you don't follow the directions while using crappy software, you're going to get things mapped in that aren't people. So if you noticed, people who just walk around with them and pan them like cameras, it's based off of contrast and distance and depth. So if you've used one, if you like look through a doorway, you're going to get a blue wall and a red contrast behind the door. Okay. So immediately the software is going to say, okay, the blue wall is a person because it's matching contrast and depth. So it'll stick a stick figure there. And every single time it does that, it's the wiggly guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't move or do anything human at all. But it's a demon coming to get you. That's what people think. But the software, if it doesn't map in your arms, it doesn't map in your legs or your head, it just fills in the blank with the wiggly arms. And sometimes you get the connected dot nightmare object. Yeah. And sometimes they form on top of people's shoulders and heads. That's because it's mapping in something that the depth and the contrast is seeing on the camera, and it's just designed to try to make stick figures out of something that's there, because in the directions it says you have to have nothing in the field of view except for the players, and you have to do it from 6 to 8 feet from the sensor, and then you're going to get the best results out of it. So if you stick it somewhere, nothing there except for a wall 8 foot away, then it's going to map out physical things. Nothing ghost-like, because it's impossible theoretically for infrared lighting to bounce off of incorporeal things and send depth information back. So if you get like a mist, or if just use the laser grid, that's going to work better.
Okay.
And that's what I think about the SLS camera.
I know. I get from people we've had on, we've talked to about tech before. I know you watch the show and support us a lot, and I love when you come on and ask us questions. And I remember having that debate on there. It was something I wanted to. People were also asking on the chat. So, let's see. What do I got? Somebody. Kathy says, "I really wish other people knew that it's so crazy how they freak out and it's not a damn thing." Okay. So like just kind of a generic question. What is the scariest experience that you've had while you've investigated?
I already told you. Oh, it was
rolling down the stairs, man.
Downstairs. Yeah, I guess I would do it.
Yeah, that's up there. While I was investigating, nothing scary. It all happened before. It all got me to the investigating part.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, everybody's chasing the dragon. If they're in my shoes, they're chasing that experience that freaked them the hell out.
Right.
My kid telling me the name of the guy when he's 2, like some horror movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any worse than that at all. So I've been to locations that are terrifying on paper: House Wills, Monroe House, prisons, asylums where thousands of people's died. I mean, Gettysburg. I mean, it's all up here. Yeah. Nothing. I mean, even things. I mean, I'm sorry about this, Derek, but this little part in the Monroe House. It's the first part of the film that you see. I hear chanting, and I start to feel this energy, this weird sensation all over my body. It feels like some type of warmish, tingly thing start to surround me. And I have a story, if you want to get into it later, how I know when an entity is trying to get inside you.
Okay.
I start to feel that, and I know exactly what it is. And this thing at the Monroe House likes to mess with people and jump them and get inside them. So it tries to do that to me, but then it stops. But then the next person closest to me is Derek, unfortunately. And what he started experiencing was he said it just felt like someone nailed him right in the sternum as hard as they could. Yeah. And he had to take his camera rig off and bend over and take a minute or two.
Wow.
For the pain to subside.
Yeah.
And it was all like this, this spike of weird. I heard something, but I didn't capture it. So I'm wondering if it was in my head or psychic. I don't know.
Sure.
And then I started feeling the sensations. So that can be alarming. But if you're used to that sort of thing and you know how to act to it, then it's not so bad.
Sure.
It's pretty intense.
It can be.
Yeah. I got Billy, our good friend. What's your favorite locations you've been to?
Favorite. Gettysburg. Gettysburg is super cool.
Yeah.
It's probably my favorite place to return to time and time again.
Yeah.
Because of the history and the visual candy you get from all the monuments and how they have the town set up and the Paracon that Pam and Steve Barry put together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my favorite.
That still happens this year.
Yeah, I really do too. We go Josh had us going 3 years ago, and we've been going every year since. So that's my favorite.
It's going to be our first year. Hopefully, knock on wood, everything is back to normal by then. We don't have to miss out on it. But
Kate said she's going anyways because there's a Friendlies there.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
That's my favorite place, I think, by far. I have Madison Seminary is very active, very cool. I like to go to places that things happen, especially they're psychoactive places. Madison Seminary is a very psychoactive place.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm not shy by saying that Adam Kimmel and Rebecca are a part of that.
Yeah.
Some people, when they get a location, they make it more psychoactive. So that's a very psychoactive location. Randolph County Infirmary, no coincidence, right? Is very psychoactive.
Right.
The two locations that Adam and Rebecca and other people that they worked with is very psychoactive. And I pick up on that and get evidence very easily at those locations.
Yeah.
Those are one of my two favorites. Waverly Hills is just freaking awesome. Ohio State Reformatory is just freaking awesome to see and to be in there. Just the structure and the history and what happened there is just insane. House of Wills is one that's just like, what the F?
Right. I wanted to get into that one place. I know you mentioned it earlier, and I've had a lot of my own experiences there, and I've had.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
I mean, there was a point in time where I had the keys to the place, and I was in there a couple times for a little bit by myself, and it's just different, just off the like stuff I've never witnessed before. I mean, anywhere else, just crazy, weird energy that I couldn't explain. I was wondering. I mean, obviously you've been there. What kind of stuff were you experiencing there? Were you able to log any data, any evidence?
No, I was there filming. Matt Benton was working on a film at the time. Me and Josh Bender was up there helping film stuff.
Gotcha.
We were there for 2 days doing that. I think 2 or 3 days. And I wasn't there investigating, but we were running cameras. I don't remember recording anything, but the feels and the personal experiences, the footsteps, if you go up to where Mr. Wills died, his bedroom area, that place was very freaky to me. Like I was like this the whole time. Like I did not feel comfortable. That freaking blue ass doll room that Eric had.
Yeah.
That can go away.
Any doll room period can go away, but
that one especially though. That one is creepy, dude. It's so creepy.
Yeah.
And the area where they had the funerals with the pews and the whole architecture that looks like it's out of some Mason, third degree Mason architecture guide or whatever.
I love that room.
Yeah.
That room is crazy. If you're psychic and sensitive and you draw things to you, you can't spend a whole lot of time in that location or it will get you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, even Eric Freeman says that when he first got into the building, it tried to kill him multiple times.
Yeah.
And he says he don't believe in ghosts, but he believes buildings are entities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And which is interesting because House of Wills is one of those locations where I believe that that's very possible.
Sure. Do you think that has anything to do with the mythos surrounding how Masons put energy work into their architecture?
Oh yeah.
Do you think that?
Yeah. Yeah. The location is highly active with criminal activity of deprived culture and society. The building is run down and in shambles. Hopefully Eric is getting it slowly back up to speed. But when a building like that, built by third degree Masons, ran by a very prominent African-American family to do funeral homes, that's a recipe that you want to be careful with.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a place that definitely do paranormal research, a good place for photography, doing film work. It's crazy.
Yeah. I was there actually. Go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
I'm sorry. There was a question from George back there that I want you to kind of get back to.
All right. Let me
get done.
From George.
Hold on. Let me find it.
I'm so glad I don't have to worry about comments.
George, it's not real. It's kind of a statement. So everything we use for gear and for ghost hunting is useless. I just bought, or he's asking, is it useless? Because he just bought a millimeter.
No, we use millimeters. You just got to understand how they work, how the sensors work, how the millimeters are strange because I have the newest one where it has 7 things inside of it that it can do. And for some reason, Gary did not shield the circuitry from the REM pod and all the other stuff like he did the first gens like that I have. And he even changed the EMF sensor to a wider spectrum where it picks up more. I don't know why he did that. I guess to get more false positives. I don't know. But you got to understand how they work, what they're good at doing, what they're not good at doing, and how the false positives can happen. If you know all that stuff, then you know what to look out for and how to use it. So millimeters are fine. They have really good EMF sensors in them.
Yeah.
The REM pods, are very easily to go off, like walkie-talkies. All kinds of stuff can set those off. But you got to be careful.
Except for Mike's, because his never goes off.
My meter never goes off.
I mean, it measures EMF for sure, but he has the REM pod attachment, and it has yet to go off.
The newer ones, they have a sensitivity on them. I have the older one where it just has a low sensitivity, which is good because you're holding it with your hand.
Yeah.
But the new one, if you have it up too high, it can go off, like if you hit a button or if you hold it up too high on it. You have to be very careful.
Yeah, we basically use it just when we're looking around to see if there's something going down with like the electricity in the place.
Yeah, we use it for what EMF meters were supposed to be used for.
Yeah, you sweep the area, see if the circuitry is correct, or if it's giving off a lot, or you can definitely use it for that.
Now I do have the older version of the EDI or the data logger. I don't have the latest fancy one that measures barometric pressure and stuff like that. But I do have the first generation. What do you think of that? I mean, that is more of a device we kind of just let sit.
Mm-hmm.
We don't watch it and like ask it questions, but we've had spikes come out of nowhere, and then we'd go back and double check with like the mel meter and to make sure there wasn't anything else going on there. But
yeah, you can time code that, and with the software, it's awesome to graph it out. So we stick it in a hotspot, or we start the recorder when we're investigating one area. We set it down, like you said, and we look for anything in the environment to spike anomalously.
Right.
Like you want to look at like ITC. Did it spike in response to something you said? Now that's a little bit iffy, because that kind of interpretation of that kind of data is subjective.
Right.
But if you can replicate and predict that type of reaction to the environment, it's hard to just brush under the carpet or dismiss as just some coincidence. If you can keep, but if you get an EVP that you have very well documented and validated with an increase of anomalous environmental factors, then you're starting to really do really good research that way, because what we want to understand is what happens in the environment that we need to look for. Because sometimes if you look at your EDI logger and it says, okay, the barometric pressure was this, the temperature was that, if you start to see paranormal phenomena happening at certain environmental periods of time, maybe you're starting to put together the recipe for something to happen more so than others. So that's all hypothesis. So that, I think that's when you can start taking steps in the direction that science would want you to go. Sure. But there's always limitations and things that you can screw up. I mean, guys, you guys say that I'm, a wealth of knowledge and I'm this and that, the other. Dude, I screw up things all the time. I just edited it out of the videos.
Thank you. We're all part of
it out. Forgetting to hit the record or like doing. I mean, dude,
are you erasing video?
Yeah, I don't know if I've done that. Probably at some point.
Yeah.
See, Ray, everybody does it.
I've done it. I mean, I've done half an hour long solo EVP sessions, and after it's done, I forgot to hit record. And I'm like, God damn it! You have your recorder in your pocket and it's recording the whole time you're doing something. It's ridiculous, and we all do the same shit. Patrick asked, and we did touch base on this a little bit ago. He wants to know what you think of any of the software apps to use during an investigation.
I do audio recorder apps. I use RecForge Pro 2 to record. I have a setup to where you can use a spectral analyzer app on your phone and a voice recorder or an audio recorder, and I just plug in, a mic like the Rode Micro, plug it into it, so you get a little bit better mic than what's in your phone, and you can in real time do spectral analysis in real time, see the wave as you record. I use that. It's very convenient and very light and easy to use.
Sure.
I don't use anything. I know the Solomon app that Matt put out. There's some things that I helped him with that. There's different frequencies of white noise, like pink noise, brown noise. Mm-hmm. I put into that you could use theoretically. You can use like a field of noise, like a noise generator, to see if you can get something from that. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't suggest using anything that sweeps IP radio stations.
Yeah.
Or any type of radio unless you have something else to cross-check it with to see if it's even anomalous at all. Because I'm not going to trust myself, because the first 5 years of Spirit Box research I did, I was hearing all kinds of stuff like everybody else is.
All right.
I thought I mean, and maybe sometimes you are, but you just don't know if you are for sure.
Yeah.
So I try to get away from that because I'm more interested of knowing for sure if something's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So,
right.
That's what I'm trying to do. And that's what I try to advocate. But, I think they can, I've seen TVs go on and off, radios come on and off. If they can do that, hell, they could probably do whatever they want to with anything electronic.
Sure. Yeah.
They can levitate crap. I don't know what the limit is for what they can and cannot do. Yeah. I don't think anybody does. But, you want to be methodical about how you set up your research practices and be very critical about them and challenge them all the time. Like, some people don't like me because I challenge their methodologies. And this whole thing can turn into a spiritual practice if you let it. Yeah. There is a very fine line between paranormal investigation, ghost hunting, whatever you want to call it. There's a fine line between what you believe spiritually and what you're trying to get evidence of objectively. And the hardest thing there is to do in an investigation or a ghost hunt is remove the human element from that. So, it's very hard if I'm trying to be a psychic guy and I go into this place and I believe in fairies and I believe in ghosts and all this crap, you're going to start applying that to your investigation very quickly, very easily.
Sure.
So you have to be careful.
So you're saying that ghost radar is shit, right?
Absolutely no.
Oh, really?
The ghost radar uses the mechanism in the phone that can actually, the Compass app. Mm-hmm. If everybody saw that. So the Compass app uses the same thing in phones that Ghost Radar uses. It does pick up EMF, but it's susceptible to the same false positive as K2s and other EMF meters. So every little blip on the radar, if you can put like a EMF source around it to see if it tracks it properly, then it's a tool that can measure EMF and tell you where it is.
Yeah.
Because I would just pull out the compass.
Yeah.
And put it down, because that's one of the old school things that we didn't bring up is a compass. Sure. So if you take a compass and put it by your speaker with a magnet in it, it's going to point at it.
Right.
So stick your compass app down and watch it and see if it blips somewhere it doesn't shouldn't blip. Start looking at that kind of stuff. If you see a shadow person and your compass points to it, that might be something, folks.
Nah, it's nothing.
It's nothing.
Got a couple people saying this is like the soapbox, but hosted by another broadcaster.
You're welcome. Everyone's welcome. Blame them. They're the one that agreed to have me on.
No, this is good. We've had a couple. I don't know. Maybe you haven't, but we've had a couple people on the show where it was like really hard to interview and like get them to respond with more than 3 or 4 words. So it's nice. I know you just we're the three of us are like very the same. We love just yammering on about the paranormal, and it's been great having you on. So
I think you have faster internet than your co-host because you talk over him a lot. I think we need to speed up his internet.
He's using his phone.
Oh.
What? No, I got the computer on.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, you just can't shut up.
Yeah, it's hard when you have other people on because
let me sit back for like 10 minutes.
No, you're joking. I'm just joking.
No.
Yeah, man. I do this all the time. I talk to people all the time about the same subject, and some people just can talk and talk and talk, and some people they're kind of like, "Yeah, I went there. It was great." And that's all they got. I don't.
I'm just here for the smart ass comments.
Yeah.
Oh, between the three of us, I'm sure we can manage that.
Well,
that's interesting to know, though, about the Ghost Radar. I always thought that was just a piece of junk. But
I haven't tested it, but from my knowledge, that app is using the same. I think there's a magnetometer in your phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it uses that for like the compass apps and any type of app that measures that type of environmental data.
See, Darla has a question here. Let me bring that up real quick. Do you guys find that there's some levity with investigations Hey, do you guys find that if there's some levity with investigations, more happens?
Levity. I'm not sure if I understand that in that sentence.
Darla, if you could clarify, we'll definitely get your question out to them.
Oh, they're talking about humor and jokes and stuff.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I was trying to understand levity in that context. So, yeah, I think that it depends. And I will tell you, I'll give you a tip.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with a conscious entity, much like, say, me, you, or the folks out there watching, they are not robots. They do not jump through hoops every time you ask them. So someone may like me when they hear me talk or interact with other people or interact with ghosts that are there. They may like me for my personality or how I joke around or how I don't joke around. So they might be more inclined to interact with you. And if you go to another location and that ghost will be like, that dude's an asshole, I don't want to talk to him.
Right.
Or he thinks he's funny and I don't, I think that ghosts can have that reaction or judge you in the same way. So that's why it's hard to replicate and predict things to happen when you're dealing with that element. Mm-hmm. So I think that's that, and dealing with our own human nature or subjectiveness is the two things that makes it hard to scientifically and objectively prove the paranormal.
Right.
Because if I got my 7-year-old boy out and I told him to eat his green beans, you're not going to see any ingestion of green beans.
Right.
So if the proof of the ghost is to have the green beans be eaten, you're not getting any. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're dealing with.
Right. I got you.
That's the challenge.
That's a good analogy. I like that.
A lot of
people. What?
Nope. I was gonna say, do you feel that a place can be over investigated?
Yeah. It just use your common sense. The analogy I use is go to a zoo, a popular zoo, the one that's just people in all the time. Every time I go to the Cincinnati Zoo, about 90% of the animals are at the very back of the display case, turned away from you,
right?
Not giving you anything because of the obvious. They don't want to be in a cage and being looked at and picked at and weighed. They don't want any part of that. So you will get the zoo effect at locations. So what I would suggest doing is coming in with a different approach, an out of a box approach, something that they are going to be able to pick up on to give them incentive or reason to interact with you at all. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if I go into a location, I don't care if it's a commercial, they charge you to go in. If I see an animal that's been caged up and pecked on the window enough, I'll let it out. I'll let it know that I want to let it out. Mm-hmm. They're going to come up to me and they're going to interact with me and they're going to interact with those people.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider. You don't want to treat these things like they're zoo animals. Like you have to empathize with them.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely agree. I tell people that all the time. I mean, they're humans just like we are. Most of them, hopefully, but they're not here to perform for us.
Well, you have to ask yourself, if it is something like us, then it's going to have feelings and stuff like we do. If it's something that's never been human or something even beyond that, well, the best shot you have is to treat it like it's like you.
Right.
You don't know anything else otherwise.
Right. Exactly. We had Melissa also ask, do you think the same thing applies why some with abilities can see things others with abilities can't?
Okay, I think abilities come from usually they come from their childhood, like 2, 3 area. All the people, psychics that I interview, people with abilities that I interview, it started 2, 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is humans in our culture are said ghosts aren't real. You have an imaginary friend. Don't make up stories. So we get conditioned and programmed to say that's not real. Don't be crazy. This, that, and the other. So you learn to filter it out as you get older.
Sure.
And I think you close down those senses, and you close down that psychic sense and that thinking and approach to things that are like that. So I think when people see things from momentary glimpses of time, kind of like how you typically would describe a paranormal event happening, it's there and then it's not. Mm-hmm. I think that you let your guard down. Like, for example, the most amount of cases happen in the evening time when you're watching TV. Maybe you worked all day, you're in your recliner, you're watching TV, and the cup crashes against the wall. So there might be reasons why that happened, or there might be a reason why you saw the shadow figure, or you felt that on your arm, or you felt this over here. There may be a reason for that, but I think the reason that you actually are conscious of it is because you let down your guard. There's something going on to where you're just relaxing and going into what they call a theta brain wave, to where you're almost asleep. You're in that relaxation state. So if you hook up an EEG to the brain before you go to sleep, you can see your brain waves change and get longer and longer and longer. So when you start to enter into theta, I think that's when people who are conditioned not to believe in ghosts or are afraid of things, even they'll block it out. That's when the stuff will happen. So the psychic people, they don't change. Sometimes, some kids aren't afraid of it, and they have relationships with entities and spirits, or they just have the affinity to leave that switch on. And not everybody blocks it out. It's not understood all the way yet, but I think I kind of scratched the surface. People scratch the surface with that explanation.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. George Wilcox wants to know, he's looking for a voice recorder. What do you feel is the best one? What should he be looking out for?
It depends on your budget. You want to buy the best one that you can afford. The brands I would suggest is Zoom, Tascam, Roland, Sony. There may be a few others out there, but I would stick with those brands. We use prosumer level recorders, like voiceover actors, people who record audio in the field for either interview, sound design, that type of stuff. There's the Zoom H4n, which is a 4-channel PCM recorder. We use the Zoom H6. Josh got a Zoom H6 that we use. Oh, wow. And it's just got more XLR channels that you can plug crap in, modular, replaceable microphones. Really nice recorder. Tascam DR40 and up. You can get a Tascam DR5. It would work. The Zoom H1n is around $100. So the least I would spend, if you can afford it, is $100 on a Zoom, Tascam. Roland make good recorders. Anything that the musicians use or pro level audio engineers use. That's what I would suggest.
So you actually suggest.
Go ahead.
What was that? No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was saying I think we have the Zoom HN4, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the HN1. It might have a camera on it.
the Zoom with the camera on it is a Zoom Q2N.
That's right, yeah.
Very good. That's a good one.
Yeah, so I guess
we don't even use it that much. We use it to verify that nothing else is going on.
So you actually suggest something higher quality. What separates those models from just going to the store and buying like a $25 Olympus?
Sure. What the reason behind that is you want a low noise floor. The
Okay.
lower noise floor you have, the cleaner your audio recording is, and the more likely that a scientific community or a skeptical community would peer review it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more noise, the less detail, the lower quality the recording is, the more your recording's susceptible to pareidolia. Kind of like take a DR40.
Yeah.
If you just go like this on the recorder, Satan's talking to you right now.
Right.
So if you do that on a $300 recorder, it's going to sound exactly like what you're doing. It's like, oh, it sounds like someone's rubbing on the recorders.
Yeah.
That sounds like someone's stomach growl, like stunningly exactly like a stomach growl. Like you hear every detail of it. So that's why it's important, folks. You don't want to hear something that everything sounds like a demon. You want to hear it exactly the way it sounds to the ear.
Right. Gotcha. Bill Davis says, "Don't diss his Olympus. It's the bomb."
I like my Olympus too. That's the one I go to all the time.
Olympus, you can get decent recordings of it. Now, the $30, $40 ones, the microphone isn't that great. But if that's all you can afford, you just want to make sure that the noise in your environment is low as possible. So that's why people I investigate at night, because it's quieter. Mm-hmm. Or, and there's so many things I can suggest. Like if you're in town, mm-hmm. maybe get 3 or 4 of those $30, $40 mic or recorders, sit them at each cardinal direction outside. So if you're inside with one and you hear a voice, go at the end of your investigation, you rewind the ones back outside and see if it's louder out there.
Yeah.
If it is, then it came from out there. And if it's louder on the one that's on the north side than the one that's on the east, west, and south, it came from the north side of the house. So now you got data you can cross-check that voice with. So if you hear a voice only in the one inside and none on the ones outside, guess what? It came from inside. So that's how you investigate mm-hmm. acoustic phenomena, because you have things to check with other things.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it.
Right. I want to go back. Darla is asking again about the DR60. She just came in, so mm-hmm. she wanted to know what your thoughts were on the DR60.
Well, if it was a little bit bigger, you could probably punt it through the uprights easier.
It's going to make a lot of people who spent $2,000 on one mad, but
if it was bigger, you could hit it with the hammer easier. They're kind of hard to hit because they're kind of small.
Yeah.
You can flush them down the toilet though and throw them in the trash can. No, don't do that. Sell that thing. If you have one, sell it right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Get it while it's hot.
Yeah, you'll make a decent amount on eBay.
It's the worst recorder ever to use for paranormal research, ever.
Let's see, George Wilcox. So everyone who has a cheaper voice recorder with EVPs or not EVPs, I think we just kind of went over that.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, it depends on how we use them. You can explain.
It depends on how you use it, and all I'm saying is the better recorder you have, the better recording you're going to have. That's all I'm saying. Right. And the lower quality it is, the harder to tell if it was something on a lower end of the decibel level. So like the quieter it is, the harder it is to get the fine detail you want to hear what it is. Like a stomach growl can sound a little off if it doesn't have a high quality bit rate and sample rate, or someone whispering. Okay.
Right.
Or all those little things that you want to try to debunk or scratch off the list. It's easier with better recorders. And if you use one recorder and you get something on it you did not remember hearing, your memory sucks. You cannot rely on your memory. Have another recorder running. That's got a better memory. So go listen to that back. Oh, it's on that one too. It must came from the environment. So anything that you get on multiple recorders, 99.9% of the time is acoustic energy. So it's not an EVP. EVP is not acoustic at all. If it was, you'd hear it.
Right. True.
My stomach has said full sentences on my recorder sometimes.
It has.
Oh yeah.
It has. It's like the devil himself sometimes. See, Darla said her Canon GL2 camcorder got the best EVPs.
Yep. Cameras have microphones, so if you have something recording along with it and it only happened on there, you could consider calling it an EVP. EVP is something electronic that happens that you cannot hear acoustically. You cannot hear it as acoustic energy. You can only hear it on digital or analog media, which is tape recorder, digital recorder. So that's what an EVP is. If I'm really going to drive you crazy if I'm making you feel like all the EVPs you got on your $20 recorder is not real. I am sorry. I don't mean to do that. I'm just trying to educate and suggest better things to you all. I'm not trying to rain on parades or anything.
And I mean, for a couple of people who have mentioned those things, obviously, if you're just starting out with this, you got to. I mean,
work your way up.
Yeah, you got to work your way into it. I mean, I still haven't spent more than maybe $40 on a recorder. I may now, but
you got your camcorder or your camera, and you got your recorder. Those are two things to cross check.
Yeah.
So have them close to each other or within a foot or two. You don't want to separate them too far because then if you get something low, it may only show up on one and not the other. So if you have them nearby and you can scientifically prove that it's physically impossible of something coming through at negative 12 decibels on one and 0 on the other, that's physically impossible.
Right. That makes sense. So kind of with the EVP subject, are you a record and roll guy or are you like burst sessions? Do you do quick sessions or you kind of both?
I only do burst sessions when I have like a live audience because it's something for them to kind of hear and play back. Because what we usually do is just monitor real time. We always have someone monitoring, if not all of us, monitoring the audio that we're recording for two reasons. For one, we want to know if something anomalous comes across when it does. And two, if we're filming, which is all the time.
Yeah.
We want to know if our audio is not operating properly. So you can know immediately when it stops or interference or whatever. So we do it real time. So the burst sessions is not the greatest way to communicate because let's just say I'm talking to you right now. If I had to talk into the microphone, hit stop, pass it to you, hit play and listen to it, be like, oh, okay. And then you respond, hand it back. That's not the best way. Yeah. So what you want to do is hear when it happens. Yeah. So if you have a recorder that has a microphone jack, and then when you hit record and you can hear the recording, that's what I would suggest you do.
Gotcha. That's good questions. Good questions, guys. Thank you very much.
Let's see. If you run out of questions, I got more parades to rain on.
No, go ahead, please. We got about 20 minutes.
So we can kind of shift gears.
Absolutely.
So the whole technical crap. What I would suggest people do is if they're investigating the paranormal, let's just say your neighbor says, "Hey man, I heard you are into the paranormal stuff. I got this going on." Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Hey, I'll go check it out for you. I'm not scared." So you go over there. The first thing you want to do is interview the people who experience the phenomenon. You write it all down. You take note of it. I use like a 10, 12, 16 page. It's a huge pamphlet of questionnaires that I go through. And the reason I do that is that I try to be as thorough as possible. It questions like, what medication are you on? What TV shows you watch? Just everything like a cop would do plus more. So when you're trying to look at the data to see what trends are forming, or for example, if you start to see some red flags pop up during the questionnaire, you can start to tailor your investigation depending on what you're getting out of the questioning and the interview. So you do that. The very thing you don't want to do is run a ghost box if someone said they saw a shadow figure in their hallway.
Right.
You want to set up a camera, as many cameras as you can at different angles as you can, and all the recording and documentation tools that you have, and sit there during the time that they say they see it, if there is a common time, and observe. And if you get anything, report. So the people that are going to the houses, doing Ouija boards, running spirit boxes, trying to summon things, trying to do all these things, you investigate the report. And if you don't capture what they report, try doing it multiple times. And you definitely want to know what things can be natural to tell the people that, hey, it's probably not a ghost, but here's a better explanation. So you want to know your equipment. You want to know how psychology works. You want to know how electrical circuits in houses work. You want to know a lot about stuff that you're investigating. So do not watch TV shows. Learn about psychology. Learn about photography. Learn about any type of spectral analysis, audio engineering, everything. Every single piece of equipment that you're using, you need to know how it works exactly. If you do not, then in my opinion, you cannot investigate using those tools and give someone a proper investigation. So I can simplify a lot of investigations that people are probably doing a lot more if they just do that. They use that kind of methodology. Of course, you can do EMF sweeps. If something seems like they could be suffering from hypersensitivity to EMF, see if it's high on EMF, or see if there's infrasound causing things that infrasound can cause. Just things like that. Research the paranormal, research what causes false paranormal experiences, and know as much as you can about that so you can provide alternate explanations. Because what you will find, especially residential cases, is people already believe what they're experiencing is what they say. And what they really want is you to go in there and validate what they already believe. So one of the very first questions should be, how would you react or respond to me telling you that all the stuff you're reporting to me and that you believe is happening to you is not? And they said, and depending on their answer, you might just not take that case. There's so many tips I can give guys about doing those type of investigations. But we primarily stick to, Madison Seminary, for example, or, prisons, hospitals, because the recipes, the theories that we have in the reports that are out there, we want to go to hotspots. We want to go to ground zero. Because if you're wanting to try to research it and document and try to explain, you have to go to where it happens the most. So that's what we do primarily. But sometimes someone could be reporting some really bad things happening, maybe to children, to people who can't protect themselves, people who have lost family members like children, and they got stuff like happening that's really crazy. Stuff's really going on. So there's a rare chance that you can actually capture something. I mean, I have a case we could talk about in 2014. I had a former member, a cousin got a hold of her and said, hey, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in the paranormal, but my daughter, my 15-year-old daughter, passed away 3 days after Christmas. And we're hearing her in our house. We're feeling things touching us. We're feeling cold spots, hearing footsteps. My wife is dreaming of holding our daughter's hand. And when they wake up, she's still there and then dematerializes. I have like family members coming over, sleep on the couch, and something touches them and they freak out, and they haven't been back since. So that happened. So I went over there and we set up, and she died in the garage. She suffocated to death. So we set up stuff there. Of course, we caught the sounds of a girl suffocating to death. Female, sounded like a female, saying her dad's name, her name, and anomalous environmental spikes, you name it, through the board. My computer was turning on and off by itself. But what was profound is that first EVP I told you I got on the spirit box earlier. That's when that happened. The client gave me a 2-page list of things to ask his daughter, things he can't bring himself to ask. So you can imagine what it says. It says, are you okay? Aunt Susie says hi, so on and so forth, those type of questions. So I get to the very last question, or the very last thing it says, and it says, "I love you." We don't get any response. And I just have a shack hack, a 12-587 shack hack, and I just have it set to where it's just blurting out the craziest white noise. Those things are so noisy, but it's not, there's no radio. So I have it sitting there, nothing comes through. So I'm like, okay, if you're here, I want you to tell your dad that you love him, let him know that you're here. Nothing comes through while we're listening. So we turn everything off, we're recording back, or we're listening to the recording. So we review the IR camera. Nothing happens when you review the IR camera. On the little digital voice recorder we have recording the session next to the spirit box, we hear this gravelly, white noisy sounding voice say, "I love you," in the craziest white noise voice you can imagine. In all the other recorders, there's nothing. I mean, it's clear as day. It's louder than, it almost peaks. It's so loud. So we're like, holy shit. We're letting him listen to this, and he hears it, but he doesn't think it sounds anything like his daughter. And we're like, well, that's probably because she doesn't have a voice box and all she has is this noise. That's the best answer we can give him. So after the 5th time of letting him listen to that, he turns around real quick, sees something that scares the crap out of him, and falls on the floor and starts shaking white as a ghost. We're like, what's going on? He's like, I don't know, man. Something like rushed me from behind me. When I turned around, someone talked to my ear. I couldn't tell what they were saying. So, of course, we get up, grab our cameras and recorders, run down the hall from where it came from. And it came from the area where their daughter's bedroom was. So we don't get anything in there. So we come back. We listen to the recorder during the time where he jumped up and fell on the floor. And we heard a female voice, clear as day, say his name. So after all this is said and done, we give him the evidence. I sit him down in a remote location. I go over all of it. I'm like, okay, what do you think that we got? And I'm like, well, there's no question that either my daughter is there or something pretending to be my daughter is there. I'm like, you're correct. So with that information, it's safe to assume that, let's just say it's your daughter. If it's your daughter, this is what you need to do. As a lot of people know that goes through this type of scenario, the mom doesn't want to let go of the daughter's death, but the dad does. And it's causing a tear in their relationship. So he was ready to leave. I mean, his mom or her mom had the Christmas tree still up, unwrapped presents under the Christmas tree. Her room is stayed the same. There was like everywhere you looked was a like 12 by 12 photo framed of her with holy rosary beads and shrines of her everywhere.
Wow.
Like it was like going through some tough times and he couldn't take it. So I was like, this is what you need to do. Let's just say she is aware of all this stuff going on. She's afraid to move on to wherever you go. She's afraid all of this is her fault. And she's trying to let you guys know that she's not gone. She's trying to communicate. So let's just try something. And I was like, you need to stick it out with your wife and you need to let your daughter know that everything's fine. And he looked at me like something just churned in his stomach. I never had a man look at me like that before. But I was like, I'm serious, man. Do it. Because if you don't, you could be dealing with something pretty bad. Yeah. And he's like, well, I want my daughter to move on. This guy did not believe in anything. So he did for a couple years. I think he ended up divorcing his wife after 5 years or so, but he hung on as long as he could. But he did not call me back and report anything after that. It completely stopped. So those are rare. Those are that'll probably never happen again.
Yeah, that's an amazing story.
That is.
Yeah, residentials were something we were, helping people out in their homes was something we were hoping to get back to in this year. We kind of let it just sit on the back burner while we were building the team and getting a few more folks that we trust that could be, a good part of that. And we finally got something together now, but with this quarantine stuff, it's been obviously nobody's going to anybody else's house. So, it's been rough, but we haven't had anything. I mean, we've had the reverse, I guess, a couple times. We've had one person say she was having trouble renting out a rental property. There was activity, so we went out there to check them out, and you know, we get there and she shows up, which is fine. She's the owner. I mean, if the owner wants to be on property, that's fine. She didn't really have much history on the house. We didn't have a whole lot to go. We didn't actually. We didn't really know what we were getting into. But, anyways, long story short, we get there, and 10 minutes after the team gets settled in, her friends show up with wine. And before you know it, we're hosting a ghost hunting party. I mean, it
Nice.
was the most ridiculous thing.
How it happened.
It's like we thought we were helping somebody out, and next thing I know, there's women like following us around, like, "Oh, do you have a ghost box? Let's do a spirit box session." And it just like, oh. So I think that was like the last residential we had for a while. After that experience, we're just kind of like, you know what? Let's regroup. Let's do our own thing for a bit. Let's hit some hot spots. Let's learn our equipment. Let's get some method together. Let's experiment.
So, did that like force you to say, okay, you have to lay some ground rules for the investigation? Is that what you'll do?
Oh yeah, we have Sean Gilmore.
Mm-hmm.
He's a member of our team. He's kind of like leading the residential department, I guess, of the team, and because he's been there, he's been on the front lines with that. He has the experience. He's working on an interview process, which I think is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-interview, interview before you even show up at the door, and try to find the red flags before you know what you're getting yourself into, because you got to protect yourself as a team too. I mean, you got to make sure you're not going into something that's a waste of time or dangerous, Yep. So that's something that we're working on. We all have our own abilities and our own experience with different aspects that make our team a good team to do this now. But it's definitely something that we gotta work on being a little bit more strict and have more, like you said, ground rules going into these things.
I would suggest getting just like your lifelines, having other people take a look at it. I do that all the time, man. I'll be like, okay, here's the information. If you have time, take a look at it, see if there's anything that pops out that's unusual, like delegate and resource things out to your team like you're doing. And like have someone dedicated to, the historical research, have someone dedicated to profiling, everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually what we're working on. Everybody kind of has their task, their department that they're working on. So, and I think it's gonna do well for us. And I'm looking forward, once this whole pandemic thing is over, getting back into that work in the paranormal field and helping people out. It's going to be a good thing. But we got about 8 minutes left. Why don't you go ahead and do a promotion for the Haunted Hartford City? Tell us where we can get the CD or the CD. Jesus Christ, the DVD, Blu-ray. Let us know where we can get that. Give us some information.
You can pick up my demo at interfacedeath.net.
Yeah, you turned on some mad beats.
That's right. Hey, I got some mad beats on the soundtrack. You have to know this.
Oh, cool.
No beats, just regular paranormal soundtrack. But go to interfacedeath.net. On the homepage, you will see a place right on the homepage. It'll direct you to the videos page. You can go to interface.net/videos. They'll take you right to the top. You can rent it from our website for $4.99. You can watch it unlimited amount and download it digitally for $15. You can get the Blu-ray for $20 from our store. We're still running the discount code for everything. If you use the code support interface death with a capital S and a capital ID at the end, support ID, you can get $5 off of the Blu-ray and everything else in our shop right now. And we're running this promotion through this whole. I'm lining up shows like you guys got, and I'm trying to let everybody know. It's like, hey, look at me over here. I got this crazy documentary that we put together. And it's our best piece of work that we've ever done. It's the hardest thing that we've ever done. And it's our baby. And we want you to buy our baby.
That sounds weird, man.
I know.
Buy our baby, please. We're not that kind of show, man.
Oh, darn. Damn, I was misled.
We could be, though. We could be.
So you got any projects coming up? Any brainchilds you're working on?
More babies, yeah. We're trying to conceive more babies. We have a baby we're trying to conceive in May. I'm not going to give the exact date, but we're trying to get. We have booked Hillview Manor's booked for
Nice.
May. June. I can't remember what we booked in June. Maybe my team in the chat will help me. We have 3 or 4 locations booked. We're looking at a few more.
Cool.
We're looking at the Octagon Mansion in Virginia is another place that's been emailing me and a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, I've just started hearing buzz about that place, and I've never heard of it before. And all of a sudden, it seems like it's a hot item or hot location.
Yeah, we might do that. We're going to OSR in August. We're going to the Octagon Hall Museum in Kentucky, Franklin, Kentucky, and we're going to. Crap, where are we going? It's totally lost my. We're going to some places, and we're going to try to film another season 7.
Nice.
If this freaking pandemic lifts and we can go do stuff, it'll happen. If not, then you'll be seeing the live shows that we do every week. You'll be hearing me talk bad crap about your crappy equipment. And I'll be just raining on everybody's parades as usual.
So it's one thing about the show, we like make sure everybody's very open about their opinion. We don't. I mean, if people don't like it, people don't like it. They don't have to agree. It's like
you can get stuff on anything. It's just better if you have better stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's and but if you're just starting, like we said, if you can only afford the $30, then the $30 will work.
Yeah,
be careful how you use it.
Yeah,
but you have to be careful how you use anything. I mean, you really do. So it's just it doesn't matter. But we're all tech geeks, and we like to have the better stuff. Eventually, I will have. I mean, Mike went out almost initially when he first started and bought the Zoom. So
no, Kate bought it for me.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Kate bought it for him. Sorry.
Yeah, I released a video about how to do really good EVP recordings analysis using your smartphone, which has got a lot of views. So I probably should put out a whole bunch of tutorials on how to use affordable gear the right way. I think that would go a long way.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I come across the people as a know-it-all jerk all the time, and I'm not trying to do that. But let's just face it. When you see people doing all this stuff, you kind of get jaded and cynical about it all. And I'm just human. I can't stop from doing it all the time. But hey, I've gotten really cool EVPs on cheap recorders, and I don't know for sure if they're EVPs, but I just can't explain them. And that goes along with $1,000 equipment. I mean, you can narrow down the possibility of it being anomalous, but you never know for sure if it's a ghost or what it is. Yep. You just don't know.
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure it out. But you can't do that unless you do research and you keep experimenting and keep trying.
Exactly. Thanks for having me, guys. You guys are awesome. I support everybody that's, trying to get this media network off the ground and, going up and up next to all the other media channels and being cool. Yeah. So I mean, anything you guys need at all, just let me know.
Will do, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. Real quick, just tutorial. The tutorial. Yeah. One last quick thing before we sign off for the night. Ken Ace Taylor asking for that discount code again.
Here, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Watch out. If you're watching Ken, he's putting it in the chat.
There it is.
There it is.
Support ID. Got it.
Capital S and capital ID at the end.
Yep.
You got it.
Leave that up there for a second. Justin, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been we're way past due with this interview, so thank you for coming on.
I know how it goes. Like I said, if you guys need help, if you need me to help promote anything you're doing, I mean,
appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you helping me too, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, folks, it's Justin Brown, Interface Death. Go check out Haunted Hartford City, a paranormal documentary. I haven't myself yet, but I'm going to this weekend. It's going to be a thing. I'm going to watch it. It's something excellent to entertain and learn from over this COVID-19 weekend. So, Mike, have a good night, sir, as always.
Yes,
Had a blast, man. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll spook you later, crypto heads.
Bye.
Later on.